Welcome everyone to the latest episode of Ethan and Nick's Trash Boat Sports Podcast. As you can see, we finally have video, and it's been a long time coming. This episode has been a long time coming. It's been 3 months now, almost 4 months since the last time we were on air. Yep. But it's really nice to be back. A lot has happened. We've missed quite a bit. Start of the NBA season has come and gone. We've missed the Super Bowl. I mean, we were there. Everybody saw it, but we wish we could have covered it a little bit more in tune with the timing of it. But we have a lot to talk about. I'm sure we won't cover it all in this episode. But I'm Ethan Finkelstein at I am Finkelstein on Twitter, here with Nick Graves, Nick State 15 on Twitter. And man, I'm just so happy to be back.
I'm happy to be back. This is a catharsis that I have missed. Again, we were roommates. This is what we did 85% of the time anyway, but this is, I'm just happy to be back. I feel like I'm at home.
Yeah, no, it's great. And honestly, like you said, cathartic. That is the term. But let's get down to business. The fact is that it's impossible to jump back into the sports universe. I know it's like we almost were in hibernation for the last 3.5 months. Yeah. But how do you not lead with the Super Bowl? First off, what an NFL season. No cancellations of games. At times you thought it was going to happen, especially with the one game that got pushed all the way to a Wednesday, I believe.
That's like the
first ever
Titans.
Yes, first ever Wednesday night football game. Like
that's not high school, that's not college related. NFL.
Yep, but the big thing being the Super Bowl matchup with the current consensus best football player on the planet, Patrick Mahomes, versus the consensus GOAT football player in Tom Brady. And gotta say, we knew going in it didn't look good on offense for the Chiefs, that you were down 2 offensive linemen before things even started.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you would have thought that the other down linemen, the other talent that you had on offense. Yes, you didn't have a true dependable number one running back. You had kind of a committee, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been very up and down. But at the same time, the amount of receiving talent that Mahomes has in Kelsey, in Tyreek Hill, in McCole Hardman, in Robinson, it's you would have thought that there would have been at least some ability to keep up with the pace of the Bucs. And I think I, for one, just like everybody else, was kind of stunned at just how one-sided that thing got. And again, it's Tom Brady. You don't ever bet against him in a big game. Fact is that he's 7-3 in the Super Bowl for a reason. But
that's nuts.
The MVP of that game, despite what that Super Bowl MVP trophy is going to say, I think was actually that Bucs defense. Stifling Mahomes, not letting him be comfortable all night. I think you saw the stat, right? It was like he rushed 499 yards in the backfield just to get passes off, which is just an insane figure.
I mean, I take nothing away from that Bucs defense. They were the Super Bowl MVP in my opinion. But they legitimately exposed the downside of losing 2 offensive tackles, one being a former, Pro Bowler. The Bucs didn't get a lot of, support. They had, Mahomes is going to walk into the easiest back-to-back, Super Bowl wins of anybody's career. And that didn't happen. We saw that. But watching the game quarter by quarter, it just looked like the Chiefs were just shell-shocked, right? But it also looked like in a response, they just didn't have enough to give. And of course, as the game starts to wear on and it's kind of too late to make your comeback, you start to see Tyreek Hill get his catches, Travis Kelce get his catches, and I've never seen Travis Kelce look as shaken as he did early in any game of his career than he did in the Super Bowl. There were some catches he should have had. There was a lot of banking on what happened in the matchup in the regular season where Tyreek Hill just blew the top off of that defense, and the reverse happened. To your point about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, excellent rookie campaign, but there were games where he was necessary that he didn't really, cement himself in that game. And when you're talking about a Super Bowl, it's always going to come down to who can control the ball the best. And that's what the Bucs did. It's not a fluke that Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowl wins. He is the greatest winning franchise in NFL history right now, right? But the way that he's won his Super Bowls, you could talk about the field goals and for his first 10,000 Super Bowl wins and, having a stifling defense in another, but he's won Super Bowls in many different ways that it was just an adaptation to the circumstances for him. It just seemed like it was just a simple, audible in a practice. I hate to dumb it down that way, but that's what it looked like. And then, of course, your favorite target, the best target you've probably ever had in your career, and that's no disrespect to Randy Moss, comes up clutch. I don't know. I didn't have any stake in this game. I just wanted a good game. That's it. And it got downright ugly. And the score could have been a lot worse than what it was. The action. Yeah.
No, it's just, it's so many things. It's compounding of so many things for me. And the fact is that, like, if anyone's listened to this before, my thoughts about Tom Brady. I have been a staunch critic of him, someone who can acknowledge his greatness, but someone who will never, ever like him. And at this point, I'm forced into a situation where I kind of have to almost shift my perspective into just gentle indifference. I will continue to acknowledge that he is the GOAT. There's no disputing it, both from a statistical profile and awards profile, championships. He's got the best resume of any player in the history of football. You can make an argument he's got the best modern resume of any athlete in the last 50, 60, 70 years. And that includes Michael Jordan. Do I think he's as statistically dominant in the regular season? No, but that's not the conversation we're necessarily having. The fact is that it's impossible to acknowledge what he's done. You can say, oh, well, Deflategate. Oh, well, Spygate. It is what it is, man. The fact is that you want to take 2 championships away from him, that's fine. He's still got 5. What he's done since turning 35, the second half of his career alone, that's the thing. He went from age 24 to age 30. I think it was actually 36 and up. From age 24 to age 35, no Super Bowls. He wins 3 really early by the age of 24, 25. Goes a decade without another one. And then goes back and wins 4 of them in the second half of his career. He's literally 2 Hall of Famers split. If you cut his career down the center and you can only take one half from either end, he's actually more of a Hall of Famer in the second half of his career than he was in the first. Anyone who in their age 43 season goes out and has 100+ QB rating, throws 37 touchdowns or whatever that ridiculous number was, or 40 touchdowns, and performs that consistently well. He only had 1 bad game in the playoffs too. It was the NFC Championship against the Packers, where he threw interceptions on 3 consecutive possessions, which we're not opening up that can of worms, because the fact is that they coached themselves and played themselves out of a Super Bowl appearance. But it's just impossible to acknowledge. But the one thing hear me out. Didn't you at some point, several times throughout the second half, just think, okay, when are we going to see that Mahomes come back? Because, you can never rule him out. Before this, you could never rule him out. There was a statistic that I think showed, in games that were, within, 2 scores, he usually comes back and wins. He doesn't lose games where he's able to stay within 2 possessions. And then you thought that comeback in the previous year's playoff against what was it? Was the Texans, the Titans? It was that game in which they fell behind by almost 3 scores, and they were getting outclassed.
The Texans,
Texans,
and they were at home. Yeah,
yeah, and that's the thing. You think after these performances, like, this guy's the Terminator. He's not gonna die like that. And it just never materialized. Between the passes bouncing off the hands, the couple that ricocheted off helmets, and that's when he actually was able to get the ball off. It just never materialized. And you kept thinking to yourself, my God, like, it's really happening. They're getting completely outclassed. The most complete team in the NFL, or so we thought, heading into the season, is getting outclassed in every capacity. We knew they weren't at a defensive advantage, but we thought, okay, they were going to at least be able to score with them. Didn't happen. But I think, there's not much to say other than what happened. 7 rings for Brady. Kind of wish the value of my Mahomes rookie kind of went up with the second championship, but that dude's window is the next decade plus. I think we can both agree.
I wouldn't worry about that. I would value that rookie card, but it's not an equivalent. But looking at how the Miami Heat fared in the NBA Finals bubble, missing Goran Dragic was huge. He was the leading scorer at the time, not Jimmy Butler. So you miss an important piece to your team, not only distributing the ball, but also scoring, right? Yeah, Tyler Herro and Kendrick Nunn and Bam Adebayo, chipped in and stepped up tremendously, right? But it just wasn't enough to beat that Lakers team. Missing 2 starting offensive tackles, I don't know if you can surmount that.
Wasn't it one on both sides too? Wasn't it both on weak and strong side?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not
Eric Fisher is on your blind side, and he tears his Achilles. So when you miss your blind side tackle, that's already going to alter the way your offensive line works as it is, right? But you miss 2 tackles. I don't know how you fare out, whether it's running the ball, whether it's passing the ball, whether it's, as Andy Reid likes to do with his mobile QBs, on the bootlegs. I don't like it. It just doesn't bode well,
It also wasn't just any defense. It was the league's 2nd-ranked defense. It was an elite defense. It was a defense that you can't miss. You shouldn't miss 1 starter, let alone 2 against. It was a recipe for disaster, and it was something that I tried to bring up to everybody, thinking that, okay, this game's going to be a blowout on the Chiefs side, just like old man Brady's Bucks are not going to be able to keep up. I'm like, no, this is going to be at most, the biggest I could see it being for the Chiefs is maybe a 10-point game, and I think the Bucks still get theirs, and I don't think the Chiefs score 40. I was telling people that my score prediction, and again, this was dumb of me, I had 34-20. I had 35-21. I actually had a 14-point game, believe it or not. And that was, in hindsight, a very foolish prediction on my part, especially with the fact that they were down 2 O-linemen. I just thought that Mahomes was too strong a passer, and I thought Mahomes in the playoffs is a different animal. He, as good as he's in the regular season, he's even better in the playoffs. And just how wrong were we? But that's my 2 cents of it. It is what it is. Bills Mafia, more importantly, is gonna make the necessary moves to get over the hump next year. Hopefully, Brian Dable stays put, and the evolution of Josh Allen as an elite passer continues, and another season with Stefon Diggs is gonna just bolster that offense even more. They need to really address that run game, because Singletary ain't it. He ain't it, and neither is Moss. But we'll see. But yeah, let's.
Well, if we're going to keep this in the realm of New York, I guess I have some demons to confront. So
I'm sorry if you saw that like smirk that just went wide across my face.
You got it.
It's because he texted me this morning, and it's funny because we're both wrong in a sense. Like I was bearish about their chances compared to what they've done so far myself. But man, oh man, did you strike out with that one.
All right. So
What was your win total that you had projected? Remind the lovely folks at home what your projected win total was in the 7-2 game season for them.
Nicholas Graves, Knicks Tape 15 on Twitter. My projected win total for the New York Knicks was 18.
And I'm sorry, how many do they have right now?
19 at the halfway mark.
Yeah, and a winning record to boot. So just as a reminder, my win total, and again, I projected them to have a losing record for the season. I projected 24-48. I thought they were going to win 1/3 of their games. Well, they'd have to lose all but 5 to hit that. And something tells me they're not going to be that bad in the second half. Now, they may not finish with a winning record, but this is a team.
This is without Mitchell Robinson. This is also not including the fact that Austin Rivers hasn't played in the last 10 games. This is also not including the fact that Obi Toppin has not done enough. So, yeah, this bodes well. Okay.
And this team is still down a definitive second superstar. Julius Randle is the only superstar on that team right now. And let's not conflate this. Julius Randle is a superstar. Is he a tier 1 superstar? No. But that's a player right now that's playing like a top 25 NBA player. And I don't think there's any denying that. And so
I want to talk about that because when he was with the Knicks last season, he played well. He played well. It's still, I'm not going to call him any tier of a superstar. He is just a really talented player right now who is earning his keep and is going to continue to do that, right? But for any player to come through New York and average 20 plus points, 10 plus rebounds.
23 and 11 right now. 23, 11 and
6 assists.
5.5. Yeah. And
like
that's the thing.
Assists.
But that's the thing about
doing everything that we're asking any player to do. And when you get those instances of players playing out of their minds on lesser teams, it's to get the next contract. They're not necessarily worried about wins. They're focused on the next contract.
But this isn't even a contract year. He's still got one more left.
It's not. That's the part that's like stifling to me right now. It's not only is it not a contract year for him, but the team is actually playing well. Like Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith said something on First Take on Thursday that really hit my heart. The New York Knicks are exciting to watch again.
They are. And that's the thing about this that I love so much is that the offense is meshing around him. And the fact is that it's even brought his game up. Did we think that Julius Randle was a shooter before this season? I mean, he's respectable, but did we think he was a shooter before the season? He's averaging, he is shooting 41% from 3 this year. He's responding to this team, and the team is responding back to him. And that's the reason why I feel comfortable saying he's a tier 2 superstar for me, a top 25 player right now in this snapshot.
Right now, I'll give him top 25.
The reason why I say that is this, Nick. The reason why I say that is this. It's in addition to the level of play stepping up. And the fact is that you can make an argument that, 2 years ago, his one season in New Orleans, he played about as well as he is right now. I think his numbers were a little bit down for the counting stats, but his efficiency was actually slightly up everywhere except for 3. But it's the combination of what he's doing on a night in, night out basis, the amount of double-doubles you see each year, his stat line each night basically being 25 and 10, essentially. It's a combination of that, but also the fact that he's brought the best out of guys like Emmanuel Quickly, who can shoot from 3. He's helped in the development. He's helped in the development to a certain extent of RJ Barrett, who has taken huge strides for me this season.
I want to talk about that.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the fact that that basically since February he's been shooting 47% from 3, which is just 1, unsustainable, but 2, marvelous. 3. The leadership. And he penned a piece, by the way, 2 days ago. I don't know if you saw it, but for the Players Tribune, he penned a piece, and essentially the crux of it was, I'm so happy to be here. He ended with saying, I'm damn proud to be a Knick, which is great to hear. you always want somebody to be there, but he talked about like how he had shouldered so much of the responsibility when he first signed the contract, how he believed what he thought it translated to was the team was saying, okay, you got to go out there and put up 25, 30 a night. And it's going to fall on you to be that scorer. It's going to fall on you to shoulder all the load and to take all the bumps and to carry us. And he realized that wasn't the emotionally mature thing to do as the leader of this team. And he's talked about the steps he's taken to really grow as a leader, as someone who leads by example, but also understands his role within the organization as well, in terms of having his play feed into others and to bring the best out in his teammates while also trying to maximize his own game. And part of that is, some nights he's not going to be asked to score. Some nights he's going to be asked to be more of a distributor. Some nights he's going to be asked to be more of a facilitator. And some nights he may have to go out and drop 30 a game, but everything that has been displayed by him this year has completely changed my mind about him, and it's made me have second guesses. If at the start of the season I would have told you, all right, they're hedging their bets with Toppin essentially by picking a guy at the same position who they think has high upside, who's raw but has high upside, to try and see if Randle can be trade bait. Now I don't know if I really feel that way anymore. He's still just 26 years old. He's got a year left in his contract, and by all means, he looks like a part of someone that can be a contender. I don't think he can do it alone, and I think it does require other guys to definitely step up a little bit more and for this team to mature, a great deal more. And it could benefit from bringing in someone who's a complementary superstar. But at the same time, this team doesn't feel like a fluke. And I don't think it's a coincidence. This team doesn't feel like a fluky 19 and 18. They feel like they're going to be relevant for till the end of the season. Are they a championship team? No. And no one seriously thinks that. And do I think they probably get knocked out in the first round with whoever they play? Probably. It's a young team that's going to have their first bit of playoff experience come this year. But just the amount of strides this team has made and how it's responded to the Tom Thibodeau in his first year as Knicks head coach has blown any reasonable expectations I had out of the water. And I really do think this team legitimately, for the first time, has a positive culture behind it, one that's actually attractive to people to come to. And that's the thing that's exciting about this. For the first time in 8 years, it's exciting to actually think about what can happen.
That's the excitement right now, right? The last time we went into the All-Star break above 500, we were 2 seed. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but we made the playoffs, right? We won a playoff series, right? And the way that this bubble has shown us that, how certain teams will play with, without the crowd and, what kind of energy certain teams need to be successful. The Knicks didn't have that. We were essentially starting from scratch from a momentum standpoint. And I'm happy. I'm really happy for my team. Yes, I said we wouldn't win more than 18 games this season. Okay. And if you look at the history of the Knicks, every time you give them any kind of, high expectations, they fail. Anyway, I want to get into IQ. And I hope anybody, I don't know how far this will get out. I'm going to share this and I'm going to tag them in it. But CBS Sports gave the Knicks a D+ for the draft grade for Emmanuel Quickley. In one game this year, he played 18 minutes and scored 18 points. He is one of few rookies in Knicks history to play less than 25 minutes and hit 5 3-pointers in the game. In that same game was one of few Knicks in history to have 20 points and shoot and make 5 threes coming off of the bench. D+ is the grade that IQ got. Obi Toppin has probably played D+, but he had calf injuries earlier in the season. He's still coming to his own. He's figuring it out. But every time Obi steps on the court, it is nothing but high intensity, high motor. I'm going to contribute the best way I know that I can. Even if it's spotty, he does what he can. And I appreciate that. I'm still having an issue with Thibodeau overplaying some of these guys when the game is out of reach, which is so weird to say consistently this season by the Knicks, right? Like, we don't have to overplay certain guys. For the better part of the first 15 games, we were playing 11 players. The last team to do that consistently throughout a season with any kind of high expectation, Daddy Rich, Chuck Daly and the Pistons back in the 80s. He was known for utilizing his bench. He was known for that throughout the season, throughout multiple seasons. But bringing it back into gear, going into the All-Star break, yes, it's one game over 500 is exciting. And there are less blowout losses. There are less upset wins that we have. It's fair, competitive play. We've beaten the Warriors in Golden State. Yeah, well, Draymond got kicked out. I don't care. It happens. It happens in any game. I don't care. We've challenged the Blazers. We've challenged the Clippers. With less money invested in a roster, we have a similar record to the Boston Celtics. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is going to be a very grandiose, boosting for the New York Knicks coming from me. But I have watched more New York Knicks games this season than I have the last 4 seasons combined. My friends are now like, yo, what happened? And I'm literally telling them, I don't know. I really don't know. And me and you, Ethan, we go back and forth. We try to stay up and abreast on what the Knicks are doing all the time. We don't know what happened. Me and Ethan, no joke, are older than everybody on that team.
Here's the thing that's really confusing to me, right? And again, small sample size. He's only been back for 9 games after his exile, and he's only started 1. But what the hell's happening to Frank Ntilikina? What the hell happened? He comes back and suddenly he's shooting 60% from 3.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's not gonna be sustainable, but like, he learned to shoot.
He is 3. He's got the 3. He's getting the 3 down in the defensive portion of what he was actually intended to be drafted.
But who is working with him on this? Because the guys that can shoot,
I can tell you who's working on him with.
But the guys,
Mike Woodson. Think about it, Ethan. When the Knicks went to the playoffs in 2012, 2013, when Mike Woodson was our head coach, how many snipers from 3 did we have? Let's run them down.
J.R. Smith.
Mm-hmm. Novak. Can't forget Novak.
Yes. No, can't forget. I was about to say Steve Novak, but no. We had a bunch.
Jason Kidd.
Mm-hmm.
Carmelo Anthony had a career high 3-point shooting season that year.
That was also the year he won. Was that the year he won the scoring title, or was it the next year? I think it was that.
That was the year he won the scoring title, and he got 1 MVP vote. I'm not going to harp on that. I'm still upset about that. 1 vote, really? Anyway,
that was the peak of ISO Melo. Also, that was the peak of his powers in terms of being arguably the best isolation shooter in the NBA at that point.
Hell, Raymond Felton wasn't that bad from shooting from 3. Pablo Prigioni. We had 6 players that shot over 36% from 3 that season under Mike Woodson. And yes, we had arguably the best ISO player in the game at the time of Carmelo Anthony. 54 and 28 was not a fluke. Was it 54 and 28 or was it 58 and 24? I know
it was 54. It was 54 and 28. I'm pretty sure it was 54 and 28. I don't think we won 58 games that year, but I mean,
and in the games that Melo missed, J.R. Smith was our leading scorer. He averaged 25 points a game when Melo was out. So we had countable bench players in the support when we had our best players out. Mitchell Robinson is out, right? But what people don't know is that at the 20-game mark of the season, the Knicks were 5th in defensive efficiency. We were also the only team to have 2 players in the top 10 in blocks per game in Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson. And for all intents and purposes, if I'm tooting the horn of the Knicks, Nerlens Noel's blocks per game should be higher. He played sparingly. But again, just like Obi Toppin, playing in those spurts, impact, high energy, it's boded well for us.
there was a player that you wanted to get to, by the way, the one I'm most excited about the development of this season, the guy I've been vouching for since he was in high school, RJ Barrett. And the one thing I'll say is this: numbers are up across the board. His
Let me
per
mention this
36.
real quick. Let me
I was
mention
going
this
to
real
say,
quick.
okay,
Let me mention this real quick
okay.
before you get into the numbers. The one thing RJ Barrett is doing that he did not do even at Duke is trust the first move. How many times, Ethan, do we see RJ Barrett on the line now and shooting better from the free throw line? How many times have we seen him bail himself out from almost a 13-foot floater to a contested 19-foot jump shot? That evolution has been critical. Now, get into the stats because I want people to understand what I mean by that and how his stats have improved.
It's funny because I was going to use my phone for that and it actually just died. So I'm just going to pull it up real quick on my computer. But
That's fine.
no, for RJ Barrett, it's the turnaround from last year to this year. Yes, he still occasionally will fall into bad. I can't even say occasionally. He has games. It's every game you will see it from him. You will see him fall into certain bad habits. You'll see him start to force shots at times, but it's becoming less and less common. And that to me is the biggest maturation thing, is that he's actually getting a little bit more selective with the shots, but also trusting himself to go to the right, because teams locked in on it last season. When RJ drove, he drove to the left, and teams were forcing him to go right. He was uncomfortable. He's using both sides of the floor. He's less predictable, and you're seeing that translate to his shooting. You're seeing it result in a full 4% increase in his field goal rate. He was shooting 40% last year. He's up to 44.3 this year. Last year, shot 32% from three. He's been on fire the last 2 months. He's up to 35%. In January, Nick, he was shooting 28% from three.
Yes.
He's since shot 47%, brought his three-point percentage up to 35 on the year. His effective field goal rate, 48.4%. His free throw, a full 12% higher. He was 61% last year, 73% this year. And it's translated across the board.
How many free throw attempts per game do you see in that improvement from season 1 to season 2?
It's funny because he's making the same rate of them. He's just taking less free throws. That's the thing.
But the field goal percentage went up, right?
Yes, so, everything is up, Nick. Every measurable metric is up.
This is for everybody, because I'm the basketball player between us two. When you have the boost of potential and one situations, you're going to make that free throw more times than not. So, to your point, that's what I was making too. When you trust your first move, and it's a good first move, and you're also using both sides of the floor as opposed to just the one you're dominant at, that's what's going to happen. There's going to be a boost somewhere. The other thing that has been impressive about RJ Barrett is that on a defensive side of things, he's not just chasing down the shooter. He's actually closing out properly. He had a lot of careless fouls from shooters. The cardinal sin in basketball is you never foul the jump shooter. It doesn't matter what their free throw percentage is. If you give a shooter time to get 2 free charity shots, that shifts the game. When a good shooter is having a bad night, what do? They try to find a way to get to the free throw. If you can make a 13, 14-foot free throw, but you're visualizing and you're actually physically seeing the ball go in the rim, it changes the game. Here's another aspect about, I want to get back on IQ because that's my guy. I've watched him all through UK do his rookie year. IQ is doing something that most rookies that have a high ceiling, what they don't do is trust the shots that got you there. IQ was known in high school of having a beautiful floater and a dead-eye three-point shot from each wing. Every area surrounding the wing. So even the top of the key, right? How many times have we seen IQ just take those shots and be effective? Almost every night, right? He could have 8 points, but he's got 2 floaters that went in on both sides, right? When IQ scores more than 15 points a game, look at where his 3-point shots are coming from. They're coming from either the wings or the top of the key. He's getting to his spots that he trusts that makes him comfortable. And when you're developing, you still have to rely on those, but he's now understanding I can add more to my game, but my bread and butter will be my bread and butter. If this is what got me here, this is what's going to also help me continue to make the money that I want to make.
It's
D plus from CBS Sports again. I just want to put that.
It's funny to think about this, right? I would make an argument that right now, already as a rookie, he may be, and I'm not saying he's the most versatile scorer they have, but I would make an argument in terms of an actual shooter. He may be the most versatile shooter that they have at the moment in terms of his actual range on the court. I would make that argument at the moment, even if there are stats that don't necessarily back that up. From what I've seen, that's been on the court, at least from the eye test, he seems to be the most versatile one.
These metrics skew everything. Like, you can't moneyball everything.
No, and that's the thing. At least from the eye test, when he's on the court, to me, he's the most dangerous shooter we have. He is the guy that I think at any point in the court can score. I'm not going to say he's the strongest driver to the basket. I actually think that is RJ, and I think it will only get better as the game goes on. But like you said, the floaters, his ability to knock down threes at a consistent basis, trusting his shots is huge. And the amount of maturity he's shown for a guy in his first season is incredible, especially for a guy that wasn't super heralded, picked at the 25th pick of the first round. And by the way, to soften the blow of the Tingus Pingus fiasco, that's a pick we got from the Mavs.
That is a pick we got from the Mavs.
That is
traded
exactly
the guard that they originally wanted, that we actually had slotted behind Quickly and Halliburton. And look at the payout. Yes,
the Knicks actually got the better end of a transaction in part because of that, and that's so rare. By the way, can we do like a quick grade of Leon Rose as what was is he president of basketball operations or is he GM? I can't remember what his role
I believe
officially
he's
is.
President of basketball operations.
Quick grade on him so far, because I'm not going to give him like an A necessarily, but I'm going to give
him a B, and this is why.
Okay, I'm overly enthusiastic.
Evaluate at the end of the season. I
want to give him a B plus so badly.
Look, I am of the notion of how I was raised in my family. We evaluate things at the end of the year. We try not to give out early grades, but I'm going to give Leon a B. And this is where he gets a B. Trusting the scouts. Number one, you have to trust the scouts. Number two, as much as people have their qualms with Tibbs, and I do too, you do have to bring in somebody who's done it before. You have to. Because this is just a start, right? I've been a Julius Randle fan since he was in high school. I was sad when he went out his rookie year with a broken fibula. He didn't have the chance to really mature the way he wanted to, and people wrote him off. But he's not going to be a mainstay. I hope he is, but I don't think he will. He's just the start to what we're trying to get, right? He's just this is just the incipient stages of the rebuilding of this franchise. But where the B minus to a B really kicks in with Leon is that that after every move that he's done, he's just shut up about it. Perry and Mills, shut up. Because that's what gets Dolan cooking. And we don't want to hear from Dolan.
Well, do you remember the original presser that we had with Leon Rose about how there was going to be a fundamental shift in the culture, about how he's going to make the Knicks a destination? To a certain extent, he has delivered on that so far. They are a team that's attractive if you're looking to go to a team that has cap space and pieces in play already. And that's the reason why I think that they're in a situation where they can attract a guy in the offseason. Now, granted, the quality of this free agent class is a little shakier now, especially with Giannis locked in, and with AD, I mean, he's staying in LA. But at the same time, in terms of trades, you have the ability to now go make a move for someone like a Karl Anthony Towns or a Victor Oladipo, though I'd rather have Towns personally.
Okay. I'd rather have Victor Oladipo, and here's my sentiment why. Because from a want standpoint, out of 10, he's a 9.2. Cat, 8.9.
So why Oladipo higher? Why Oladipo higher than Cat? In the sense that I
Because
think
if you look at Julius Randle when he was in college,
Mhm.
his effectiveness was only maximized by having a very reliable wing player. And bringing in a very reliable wing player is only going to open up that offense, because Tibbs has this mentality of keeping things still kind of restricted a little bit. If you give a guy who is as athletic and is as dynamic as Victor Oladipo to partner with an Elfrid Payton, to know he has an Emmanuel quickly behind him, all that does is just enhances the possibilities for us running plays on the wing. It also takes less stress off of RJ Barrett, because now RJ Barrett can say, hey, I have another guy who can also average 18, 19 points a game, get his own bucket. But when it comes to transition, I don't have to muscle everything. He's going to be right there. Julius Randle is going to be trailing. And now you put yourself in positions where when you're dumping the ball down low, you have two wing players you got to worry about. Yes, RJ Barrett isn't the threat that he is expected to be just yet. He's still developing. He's still learning the game. You partner that with the Victor Oladipo. I mean, I'm not saying we become contenders, but we become even more of a problem. And when
I
you
think
have that, you go from at an all-star break 1 game over 500 to 6, 7 games over 500. You know what I'm saying?
so. Ideally, then, so for you, a lineup that you'd want to run out there, and I think this could be a lineup that could legitimately be a contender for a 2 or 3 seed in the East, depending on you know what happens in the offseason in a given year. But a lineup where you have quickly at the one, and this is the ideal lineup then in this scenario. Quickly at the one, you roll out Oladipo at the 2, you move RJ to the 3 full time. You
6, 7.
have yeah, you have and stop pretending, and that's the thing. We got to stop pretending like he's a 2. Moving to the 3 full time. Randle at the 4, and then Mitchell Robinson at the 5. And that starting 5, essentially, with pieces on the bench, coming off the bench. If you develop Obi Toppin to be a reliable 6th man, if you see depth guys like Alex Burks retained,
I forget about AB. I forgot about AB.
And a guy like Elfrid Payton is a backup point guard, and you see these pieces kept and retained around this lineup, a good young lineup, a lineup where only one guy essentially, or only 2 of the starting 5 have been in the league for more than 3 years. I think that's a team that can make noise. Do I think that's a team that necessarily can beat like a Sixers or a Nets in a 7-game series? No, but I like their chances against basically every other team. I like their chances against every other team if you want to include the Sixers. I don't think that right now they're better than the Nets. I think the Bucks are not as deep as everyone says they are, so I do think you could contend. But okay, so even better, you could say short of the Nets, that's a team I wouldn't count out in a 7-game series against anyone if you throw out that starting 5 with bench depth.
Here's how I see that playing out. This is just us living in a fantasy right now. That's a team in a 4 versus 5 matchup that will be the 5 seed that somehow wins in 6 games, but pushes the second round opponent to 7. And that's okay. That's okay, because that's what the Warriors did. That's exactly what the Warriors did back in 2012, 2013. They were that 5 seed, 4 seed that pushed, albeit the Spurs did beat them in 6 games. They pushed the Spurs. There's a notion that if you win in 6 games, oh, well, okay, it's 6 games. No, sometimes you push a team to 6 games. This isn't the Bobcats from 2010, where they snuck in the playoffs and got swept, completely demolished in all 4 games. This is not that situation. But be that as it may, even if the Knicks somehow don't finish, let's say they finish 2 games under 500 and they're still in that realm of that play-in to get into the playoffs, that's not a team you want to see. That's not a team you want to see. I think you can agree with me. That's not a team you want to see because we can shoot.
We can, and the defense has been absolutely smothering this year. The fact is that you hired a defensive-minded coach, so in a sense, it shouldn't be a major surprise. But just how quickly this team has responded defensively, they literally lead the league in points against, and they're third in defensive efficiency overall. And this is a team where you have one starter right now, above the age of 22 or above the age of 23. It's a young team. They're one of the youngest, if not the youngest team in the NBA right now. They have the lowest payroll in the league, by the way, the lowest. And they're hungry. This is a team that has a lot of guys who come from places where they didn't win. It's not like Randle came from a team where he was winning. He went from one rebuilding project in LA, was ousted before the turnaround actually happened, came to New Orleans, who was in the midst of a rebuild themselves, before the days of Zion, and found himself as a Knick. So he's been bounced from one reclamation project to another. So this is a team full of, and that's the veteran, by the way. Everyone else is hasn't been here for all that long. Like, okay, Alfred Payton and Alec Burks are statesmen of the league. Fine. They've been around, but neither one of them has sniffed championships yet. It's a team where everyone on this roster is hungry as hell. And you've got a guy like Tom Thibodeau, who's never tasted that championship himself, who's got a young roster with cap flexibility, with guys he can mix and throw in there, with a lot of upside, a lot of guys who have taken excellent steps, even if Kevin Knox continues to confound me as to why we took him with the pick we did. I couldn't make it one broadcast with the Knicks without bashing him. But my point is this. With all of the development, with all of the flexibility that you have with this team, it's impossible to not start to think this is exciting. And as good as the Nets are across town, I'm more fascinated by the Knicks. Everyone expects the Nets to contend for the championship. This is what KD was brought in for. This is what Harden was brought in for. They're doing what we expect them to do. KD's playing like an MVP. Harden's playing like an MVP. The team is responding around them. Joe Harris is still arguably, if not the best per shot three-point shooter in the NBA, then certainly one of the top 3. It's a team that hasn't skipped a beat. And this is, by the way, after they got rid of Karis LeVert, who was also an excellent friggin' piece himself. This is a team that was expected to be there. Yes, and Spencer Dinwiddie. But that's my point. This is a team that was expected to do what they're doing. So, it's remarkable. And, they're probably the favorite in the Eastern Conference right now. But, to me, the more fascinating thing is that team that's sitting in the 4 seed, 1 game over 500, because we didn't think anything of this. This was a team that was supposed to bottom feed. If they were not
contrived. This is a team
that was projected to be a high lottery pick in the 2022 draft.
This could end up biting us, right? This season could end up killing that, right?
That's the thing. Well, that's why we better hope that Dallas does poorly. That we better hope they don't recover, because the fact is that I would like a shot at Cade Cunningham or any of the top prospects in the draft next year. But at the same time, you also wonder to yourself, okay, well, do you need Cade Cunningham? Do you need one of these guys? Or are you happy with the draft core you have right now? And do you start to now add in the key veteran pieces? Do you start to chase the big time free agents because you now have a more attractive roster to work with, because you have flexibility potentially for 2 max contracts going into this summer?
And there are people on the team now you have to pay. And I still think we are still 1 season away from we're still 1 season away. But this is promising. Again, even if we finish the season 5 games under 500, we're going to look back and say, okay, the Knicks started well.
5 games under 500 is a playoff spot in the East, by the way.
Think about it. Think about this, Ethan. Since the time we were 5-8, we have never not been in the top 8 in the East. Now, again, everybody has their issues with the East. It's always weak. it's never that strong. There are teams that are under 500 that could be a 7 seed, 8 seed. Exactly. I don't really care about it. We're talking about the reputation of the New York Knicks here. Okay. I would have been okay if you said, hey, we're 18-19 going into the All-Star break. I'm like, whoa, hold on. I said we were going to get 18 wins all season.
To be
We're
fair, I would have
19-18. Granted, and this is probably me being overbearing because you've had to call me out on this. This has been off the call. Ethan has actually had to tell me to calm down on the Knicks a little bit. We should not be 19-18. We should have 21, 22 wins. We should. You saw some of those losses where it's like, oh, not that turnover. No.
This is a team that realistically could expect to be a 3rd seed right now. I'm not saying that they should be anywhere near the Sixers or the Nets, but this is a team that should actually have, and not to knock the Bucks or anything like that, but I mean, if we want to get down to it, a couple of those wins swept the other way. We're fighting them for the 3 seed right now. And that makes a huge difference. It's a huge difference to play the 6th seed and to play the 5 seed in the first round. Huge difference.
It's like 2 games.
Yeah.
It's 2 games.
And that's the thing. I would be happy with 16-21 right now. But
Dude,
the fact that they're 1 game over 500 at this point in the season for the first time in 8 years. 8 years.
With no superstar. Look, and again, like I know we say they're exciting to watch, but they are exciting to watch. Like it's not one of those they start slow, then they hit this streak. No, they start games well.
Here's a statement that I never thought I would say,
Gosh.
at least for the next 5 years. I was so down on this team. And I'm still, there's still part of me that's skeptical. Here's a statement that is going to sound ridiculous. I go into each night when they play, and I actually look at this team with the optimism of no matter who they play, and it could be the Lakers, it could be the Clippers, it could be the Sixers, it could be the Nets. I never once think now we're going to get blown out. I never think that anymore. Like, yeah, there are games I don't expect necessarily to win. Right now, if you're on, even at home against the Nets, I don't expect them to win.
I want to address that.
But that's the thing. I expect them to be competitive in every game now because that's what we've seen.
Let me address what you just said because there's this misconception about blowouts now. A 10-point win in today's NBA game is not a 10-point win 20 years ago. A 10-point win in today's NBA is equivalent to a 4-point win 20 years ago. How many possessions teams get now? How many teams are averaging over 100 points? Because remember, last year we were averaging, 98?
Well, they took a stat actually earlier, which is like I think the Cavs are last in the NBA in points per game at 105. And if you went back, I think it was like 15 years or so, or even – no, I think it was if you go back a decade, they'd be leading the league in scoring. Scoring has gone up significantly. I think it's 30% or some ridiculous total, or I guess not 30%, but the point being is that the number of total possessions has risen by some ridiculous figure. And I'd have to get the stats up. I apologize to the viewers right now. I don't have those in front of me.
Viewers, just bear with us because we're shell shocked by what the Knicks are doing. We don't have the numbers for everything.
But the league is about as efficient as it's ever been in terms of offense. And unfortunately, that comes at the expense of defensive efficiency, which unfortunately is at a lower rate now than it has ever been. But the point being is that teams are getting about, 20% more possessions per 48 minutes a game, which means that scoring across the board is going to go up. Even for the weakest offensive teams in the league, it's going to go up. And again, a team that is dead last in scoring right now, which would be first 9-10 years ago, that's all you need to know about this, is that the Knicks right now are only averaging 106 a game, 107 a game. And they're towards the bottom of the league in scoring. But at the same time.
What are we? We're one of few.
Well, we have a positive point differential.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, but it's because of how amazing our defense has been this year. But the point being is that any of the 30 teams in the league right now would be a leading scoring team a decade ago. And that's the point we're trying to make, is that, like you said, a 10-point blowout loss is probably closer to a 4 or 5 point loss like in yesterday's era.
Yes.
It's not a blowout anymore. And the fact is that the Knicks don't really have that many games this year where you can count on one hand how many games in which this game was basically over by midway through the fourth quarter.
There was one against the Blazers. It's the Blazers, dude. It's the Blazers.
Anytime.
Dame. It's Dame. It's
Same
Dame. Like it's CJ. It's okay.
Yusuf Nurkic.
Like, the same guy that actually at one point was a front court teammate to Nikola Jokic in Denver. Like, dude, it's the Blazers. That could happen to anybody. Okay, we had one where we shouldn't have slipped up against there was one against the Sixers. I know for a fact, like, Joel Embiid did what Joel Embiid was doing, right? Not mad at that at all. Okay, I think we had a slip up against the Magic. I don't remember. I don't know. But to your point, I can count on one hand how many games we were like, yep, I'm turning this game off at halftime. It's over. No. These are games on one hand where it's like midway through the third quarter, we just don't have it. We just don't have it. It looked like we could, but we just don't have it. Not even yesterday's Knicks. We're talking about just 2 hours ago. Oh, man, if they don't score 20 points in the first quarter, man, I'm turning this game off.
That's the thing. They can have a quarter where they might let a team get 25, 26, 27 off of them, but they can clamp down in the next quarter, hold them to 18, 19 points.
And then score 30 that quarter. That's
exactly
the part that's blowing my mind. Like, if the Knicks did that last season where they held the team from scoring 30 points, 18 points, the Knicks were only matching that scoring total. They may get 22. No, they're having quarters where, oh, crap, we gave up 27. Let's hunker down on defense. Let's give up 18, but then drop 31, 32 on them in the quarter and cut the lead to 4 going into halftime.
Exactly. No, it's incredible how night and day this team has been, and it's amazing that this type of transition happened over the course of an off season. This is the type of turnaround that you'd expect to be a 2-3 year process. This is stuff that took Philly 4 full years to execute. And I'm not saying that this is I'm not saying this is going to be the same thing necessarily, because it's way too early to tell. And the fact is that the kind of talent that we have in this organization, I'm not going to equate to a Ben Simmons and a Joel Embiid. But at the same time, it's amazing to me how night and day this team is in just terms of being night in and night out competitive with other teams. And that's the thing that's exciting, is that they could finish 5 games, 6 games under 500 for the rest of the season, but I expect them. And this is based off a sample size where you have more than half the season behind you now. You're no longer asking yourself, is this a fluke? They're going to be competitive. And that's the thing. The question mark isn't, are they going to be competitive when the All-Star break ends and the season resumes? It's, can they sustain this and build upon this moving forward? That still remains to be seen. But for this year, at least, I like what I see, and it's no longer painful to turn on Knicks games, which I think, if you ask any Knicks fan at their core, that's the base expectation is, can we at least get a palatable basketball team? And they've absolutely delivered on that front all year.
Can we be competitive? Just like you said, like, we're competitive in every game. Yeah, again, we can count on one hand. Before the All-Star break, how many games we were like, we just don't have it? 2 hours ago? Dude, that's almost every game that's not a win before the All-Star break. Okay, it may be exception of 3 games where we had a fluky turnover, a foul that shouldn't have been called, whatever. It happens to every team, right? But we're winning, and this is the surprising stat that, I mean, nobody can really pay attention to, but, like, I'm not saying it's groundbreaking, but how many wins do we have when we should have lost? That's most of our wins right now.
Well, how many games do we have where we take a team shooter out of the equation? There have been several games this year where we've gone up against teams and we've taken their weapons out of it. The fact is, when we played the friggin' Warriors, right? Steph was not good. We took Steph out of the equation. Like, Steph had a good first half, sure, but like in the second half,
this was in San Francisco.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. We took him out. We said, okay, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us with someone else. You're not going to beat us with him.
And Kelly Oubre was not hitting.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get Draymond to start stepping up and hitting from 3. You're gonna have to get James Wiseman to actually, like, perform here and step up. But you're sure as shit not gonna beat us with Steph. And that's the thing. That's what Steph had a huge. What was it? I think he had a huge second quarter in that game, and then in the second half, nothing. and Steph kills us. So that's the thing that was amazing to me, is that this team cued in on a guy who has historically been an Achilles heel for them, and they
Oh
took him
man,
out of the equation.
Ethan, it's our fault that Steph Curry's is great. It's
Yeah, I
our
mean,
fault.
no.
I want you guys to understand that this was a year before me and Ethan actually met, but we agree that that game is against us is why Steph Curry is great. I don't
What
care
was it,
what anybody says.
54 at the Garden?
54. And remember, Melo dropped 30 and 11 that game and got the win. We got the win.
Yeah, people forget that we got to win that game,
If
but at the same
Steph
time, it was the
doesn't
Steph
credit
Curry
that
show.
game, if Steph doesn't credit that game in his Hall of Fame speech, I'm rioting. I'm rioting. I promise you. I don't know where he lives in the Bay Area, but I'm gonna find it and I'm rioting. It might just be me.
That was the game. That was the game in which he went from being, this guy's a good shooter, an efficient shooter out of Davidson, really great pick, to holy crap, Steph is a really good shooter.
He's a really good shooter. I also want to point out the fact that in a historical sense that Raymond Felton gave up some really bad numbers to point guards. This is one of the highest point totals on defense allowed for any point guard in NBA history. Raymond Felton that season allowed point guards to average 22 points a game when he was defending them. 22!
Did we hit Felton as a defense first point guard, by the way?
No, but damn it, hold your own. Fight back.
Oh, I don't know.
Look, but again, though, we're talking about Steph. Steph, that was one game for Steph, right? We've seen Steph do that multiple nights where it's like, it doesn't matter how accountable you can be on defense. Steph just hits another stratosphere of just like greatness. I'm with that. I understand that. Be that as it may, you giving up 22 points a game to your position. I don't know, man. But again, we made it to the playoffs. We were 2 seed. I don't get it. I don't understand it. That game
and got our first win in a playoff series in forever. So I mean, say what you want about what happened the next round, but it was just cathartic to go in there and beat the Celtics and end an 11-year run of playoff futility was. You had to be happy with it, or was it 12 years? Yeah, but that's. And that's still the only playoff series win that we have in the last 20-something years. But
that's the new millennium.
Yep. But anyway, real quick, and then we'll wrap up because I know that you have someplace to be, and I don't want to hold you any longer. Real quick, just if we can stay on the NBA topic, who is your MVP right now? Because I got to tell you, my top 3 is not all that surprising right now. But it's pretty firm for me at the moment. And I've got third LeBron, which he may drop. He may drop even further depending on how long the slide goes for the Lakers while AD is out. But I've still got LeBron third because he was leading this poll a few weeks ago. I've got LeBron third. I've got James Harden number 2 actually right now because of how he's come on since joining the Nets. And even though he missed so far a quarter of the season, he's been absolutely phenomenal since the trade. It's been mind-blowing how efficient he's been. And even if the points per game have dropped, he's just essentially reverted to this hyper-efficient offensive machine that's completely transformed the way Kyrie's played. He's brought the best out in Kyrie, and the team's responding around him. And there's no coincidence that the team is the hottest in the NBA right now. You make an argument over the last 2.5, 3 weeks. And that's even accounting for Utah.
Yeah. But
number 1 for me is still Joel Embiid, and it's for this reason. He's averaging 30 and 11, and he's doing it with hyper efficiency across the board, shooting 40+% from 3. And the fact is that at times you really feel like he's the guy carrying that team. Yeah. And I'm not saying Simmons is bad, but like, come on, man. Joel Embiid. It's literally Joel Embiid, Simmons, rest of the team.
So my top 3, I'm going to have to sub somebody out on your top 3.
And that's fine.
This is no particular order, but this is my top. This is my 3. Joel Embiid. For the same points that you said. And the fact that Doc is actually allowing Joel to play his game.
He's doing Chamberlain-esque things. 40 and 10, 5 times this year. The rest of the league has 4 instances.
And one of those is LeBron, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember. I don't know. My number 2 in the 3, James Harden. So our 1 and 2 essentially would be the same, but I'm not doing 1 or 2. But my number 3.
Jokic.
So I was thinking in this standpoint, I have to do a 3A, 3B.
You can't do Luka, man. You can't give him it
So,
on a losing team
so
or on a team that's not going to be relevant in the playoffs.
My 3A is Jokic, and my 3B is Damian Lillard.
Okay.
And it's a very close 1, 2, 3A, 3B, which is why I couldn't really rank. But we were only doing 3, and I'm like, I have to be that guy with that.
That's fine.
But for the reasons that you stated for James Harden and Joel Embiid were the same reasons why I have them in my top 3 anyway. Jokic is doing something that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the first to do. And that's be top 10, and Russell Westbrook he's top 10 in points, rebounds, and assists. Okay, not even LeBron has done that, right? But that's not. But there are a couple of things that LeBron hasn't done. But there are so many other things LeBron has done. It's like whatever. He's not going to get.
I mean, he's putting together the quietest 26-8-8 season that's ever existed. Like the fact is that his scoring numbers are down. We get it, but like he's still efficient. Every night. It's basically 26-8-8 with the same type of efficiency that we've been used to the last several years.
Right.
And that's the thing. Yeah, sure. He's only shooting 36% from 3. He's 36 years old. What do you want from him, man?
Doesn't matter.
He's playing as elite. But that's the thing. He's playing as elite as anyone in their mid to late 30s can expect.
We're not worried about LeBron. But I want to harp on Dame just a little bit. Just give me a little bit of Dame.
I mean, I would argue he's the most disrespected superstar the game has had for the last several years. But you want to continue on that? Be my guest.
Dame is missing Nurkic with the wrist injury, McCollum with the foot injury, a foot injury that actually sidelined him his first 2 years, first 2 seasons as a Blazer. Dame, night in, night out, plays as well as you could ask any superstar to ever play. Dame does not complain. Dame plays the game. Dame knows he can play. But getting specifics in the stats doesn't do a guy like Dame justice.
No, but it definitely helps build a case. The fact is that I've never seen a guy who in his first, what is it? He's played in the league for 9 years now, and we're in the 9th season. By the end of this year, he's going to have, almost 17,000 points in 9 years. He's been a 20-point per game scorer every year except for his first year. He's done it on very efficient shooting numbers. Career 37.4 shooter from 3.
And he was a unanimous Rookie of the Year winner.
And on top of that, like, he's been All-NBA 5 times already. He's going to be All-NBA again this season. He may not necessarily get on the first team, but like if he plays in an era in which Steph Curry doesn't exist, he's making that first team a lot more. And people forget he did steal a first team selection away from Steph a few years ago. He is the most overlooked superstar I've ever seen in this league. And I say that very comfortably in the sense that he's All-NBA first team 1 time, despite the fact that you look at him and you look at the numbers he's put up and you look at what he's done. Even I test the numbers, both of them. You go by the metrics, you go by the eye test. He's been a top 15 player in this league for a long time. And the fact is that you've only got 1 season in which he was recognized as the best at his position. That's insane. And it just goes to show you the depth at which we've had at point guard over the last decade. That's what I think people need to understand is that Damian Lillard plays in a different market, a larger market, on a team with more consistency, with guys that stay healthy, with more support overall. This is a guy who's making deep playoff runs. This is a guy who's relevant in awards conversations.
He's got a ring or two,
and he's relevant in MVP discussions because his teams go further.
He makes the team better. Like, I could sub him for Steph on one of those Warriors teams, and it's the same outcome.
They don't miss a beat. No, I agree with you 100%.
You
And
know,
the fact is that you could also throw him on a team with LeBron, in the Eastern Conference. I actually think he's better than Kyrie. I think he's always been better than Kyrie. I think he's been better than Kyrie almost every season the two have been in the league together. And if you threw him on that Cavs team, I think they have a better shot in every one of those series.
and he has the one thing Kyrie doesn't: a very limited injury history. You can't play if you're not healthy. Ethan, what is the oldest adage in sports? The best ability is what?
The ability to play, the ability to stay healthy.
If you are not available, your impact will not be felt.
So is the phrase "the best ability is availability"? Because I feel like I butchered that quote.
You did. The best ability is available. I was trying to let it slide, but you are a stickler, and I get it. But the best ability is available. Dame has had some of his key role players hurt. CJ McCollum, Nurkic, albeit the first injury for Nurkic was a freak accident. I still blame the referee for letting that ball fall on that man's leg and then kicking it. Damn it, why?
It wasn't a Zaza stepping on Kawhi Leonard type deal. But
the point remains, right? He is also available for almost every game he's ever played in. Any game, pre-game, that his name is mentioned in the starting five, Dame is there. Dame shows up. He's not a guy that just shows up. He shows out.
Yeah. And he can for significant stretches just carry a team offensively.
Think about it. The Suns in the bubble had one of the greatest 8-game runs we've ever seen any team ever have to close a regular season. If the Suns don't have that, that belongs to the Blazers. How many times have we said that about Dame or the Blazers, where if this team didn't have this or this player didn't do that, they would be X, Y, and Z where that team was? That's for everything, right?
Yeah. My biggest wish for Dame is that he just wasn't drafted to Portland, is that he was drafted literally anywhere else. We talk about the Cleveland Browns of the NBA. Sure, the Knicks fall into that stereotype, but like the Blazers in their history with draft picks historically have every bit as much of a right to that claim.
It's hit or miss, right? Like there's never been an in between. We're like, oh well.
Even the ones that hit though. Even the ones that hit, it's either injuries or they don't surround him. Whether it was Clyde Drexler.
Stop. Don't you say his name. Don't you say his name. You better not say this next guy's name.
It's one of two guys we could be talking about, though.
Don't say it. I know who you're talking about.
I'm saying both.
Go ahead.
Brace yourself. So whether it's guys that and I'm gonna go down the whole history. Whether it's just having bad foresight in a draft, like taking a Sam Bowie instead of a Michael Jordan. Whether it's having bad luck with Arvydas Sabonis not having a chance to play in the league until he was 31 years old. Whether it's a guy like whether it's not maximizing the opportunities with a guy like a Clyde Drexler, whether it's picking guys like a Greg Oden who just can't unfortunately stay healthy, who have all the potential in the world but just are made of glass. And again, I will give you this. It's incredibly sad, and I wish things panned out differently for him.
I'm glad you didn't say this other guy's name.
No, I'm going to say him.
You say it.
Or it's a guy like not Rudy Gay, sorry. It's a guy like, see, you might get your wish because I'm blanking on, whether it's a guy like Brandon Roy.
No!
And just having bad luck. They are unfortunately the team that has gotten boned the most by unfortunate circumstances with their draft picks, and through almost no fault of their own. Really, the only guy on that list that was a questionable pick was Sam Bowie. The fact is that Greg Oden coming out of college was considered every bit as much of a super prospect as Kevin Durant, was considered, based off his play at Ohio State, near sure thing. No one saw that kind of detailed injury history happening. But Brandon Roy is probably the most unfortunate one because that guy had all the potential in the world and through
Dude, you're
just
gonna make me cry. You're gonna make me cry. Okay, I want to point this out to people too, because this player's career was also derailed by injuries, and they were the sneaky injuries that he just didn't really pay attention to, but was still effective somehow.
that
The
man had
two
Kobe. Man, I'm sorry, I have to point this out. That man had a Kobe type killer instinct that I really really wish that more and more players came into the
Brandon
league with.
Roy and Damian Lillard are the only players from the same franchise that have the Kobe Bryant stamp of approval. And they are not that far in between from one, to be honest with you.
Well, Brendan Roy leaving the league was pretty much overlapped with Damian Lillard's start. Can
And
you
it was
believe
the
that?
degenerative knee injury.
It's basically been almost a decade since we've seen Brendan Roy. That's the crazy part about this. It wasn't that long
Not that
ago,
long
though.
ago. Not that long ago. I remember watching his NBA signature on Nike.com, like his signature moves and stuff. Phenomenal. I want people to really pay attention to this because the premier wings behind Melo and LeBron and so forth were supposed to be Brandon Roy, and this name is going to shock you because I shouldn't say he should be in this particular player's place, but should have had this kind of upside if it weren't for injuries. But he helped this guy get to where he is. Danny Granger.
Yeah.
Danny Granger.
Yeah.
Like, if it like the ticky tacky calf strains, hamstring strains, groin strains, sore ankles, that stuff adds up, not from game 1 to game 2 and not game 65, 66 in a regular season, but games 40 and 45. Because at that point, you're getting to your body's getting to that point where it's hitting that peak of just its conditioning for the NBA season. And those injuries matter because if you have something that stops you from hitting that limit to where you can kind of coast and you know where your body is physically, and now you're trying to, okay, let's mellow it to 60 games to 70 games, that stuff adds up when you get to the playoffs. That stuff
Sorry if I'm
adds up into
wincing,
the
by the way.
offseason.
This is like uncontrollable for me right now because I'm also looking at one more player who's pretty obvious to include on this list of guys that just got
Talk to
shafted
me.
by injuries repeatedly.
Talk to me. Talk to me.
There's a fourth guy on this list that we're not acknowledging that is currently on the Knicks roster. As far as transcendent guard play, as far as guards of the future. That's the thing. And again, we can debate all we want about whether or not the hype behind him was too much too soon. I still think that was LeBron's MVP award that year personally, but Derrick Rose was supposed to be that guy. He had been living up to the hype of being that transcendent point guard.
How could we forget?
Well, that's the thing. He was supposed to be Iverson 2.0 to a certain extent as well. He had the same type of combo guard play, the same ability to carry the guys in front of him by being a primary scorer, but also by being able to facilitate when need be. Having an amazing crossover, having the ability to get to the hole on anyone. Derrick Rose was the guy with the crossover. He was the heir apparent to Iverson. He was the guy that was going to be the signature cutting to the basket kind of guy. You have a 7-footer. Oh, got past you. Lay it right in smooth as hell. He was the guy. And we saw it for a few seasons, but then the injuries. You remember the Simba meme where he's like on the court like after the first friggin' tear, and it's like the Simba pushing up against Derrick Rose on the court. And that's the thing. We thought, okay, it's sad what happened to the Bulls then, but he'll come back. He's Derrick Rose. He's so young. He's 22.
He's got time.
Years old. He's got time, man. And and again, no fault to Derrick Rose. He's been a quality NBA player for most of his career. But you've seen over the last decade, it's just not the same, man. It's not the same. Like, you get hints of it every now and then. You can even watch the Knicks today, and at 32, you still see it at times. You see flashes of that Derrick Rose that you had back in the early 2010s with Chicago. But you also just have to think in those moments, man, what could have been? Like, holy crap, what could have been with Derrick Rose? He's going to be the first MVP, former MVP in NBA history to not make the Hall of Fame. He's going to be the first former MVP. I mark my words, first former MVP to not make the Hall of Fame. And that's sad.
So I want to close this segment out by saying this. There were 4 people that me and Ethan just named that we got robbed of primes from. That's Brandon Roy. That's Danny Granger. That's Derrick Rose. And who was the 4th person? It's slipping my mind right now. Might not have been 4, but it was 3.
It may have been 3.
It was 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 3. It felt like 4 though. It felt like 4 because of the impact those 3 guys had on the league. Like Danny Granger's impact is definitely not close to what Brandon Roy and Derrick Rose had. But at one point, Danny Granger was a consistent 22-point per night player. He was a two-way player.
Well, he had a season where he averaged almost 26 a game too.
Yes. And that was I think that was the season before Paul George. And that was the
08,
player
08-09.
Yeah.
08-09 was that year. And that's the thing is if you were a Pacer fan at the time, like circa 2009, 2010, 2011, you were thinking, man, the sky's the friggin' limit for this team. And that was when Roy Hibbert was still good, Lance Stevenson is the enforcer.
Interesting 18-month stretch in NBA history of any player I've ever seen.
Went from being an elite defender and game-changing presence on defense and a double-double machine to being Kwame Brown. And it happens so quickly.
18 months. That's all it takes. Hey, look. And again, going back to Danny Granger, he was 6'8", 6'9" doing this. The prototype for what Paul George is doing now. Brandon Roy, he had the same build. He was longer, of course, but he came into the league even 6'6", 205. At his best playing, he was 6'6", 218.
Nick, I found Roy Hibbert cards, actually, believe it or not.
No, you did. On that note, we're going to conclude.
I found a Roy Hibbert card. See?
We are going to conclude.
And another Roy Hibbert card. Look, I found another Roy Hibbert. I mean, he looks a little different in these two, but man, you just look back and you wonder what could have been.
We're going to conclude Ethan and Nick's Trash Boat podcast because of that bullcrap.
Hang on.
But you're not wrong. You're literally not wrong.
Can I please? I'm not done with this bit yet. I'm not. You have to forgive me. I'm not done with this bit.
You better not show that card. You better not show that card.
PSA 10, Kwame Brown, rookie. Oh my God! You just look at that face right there, and you just wonder. That's the face of someone who just got robbed of greatness.
That's the face of a stone cold killer.
That's the face of a guy who was so bold and brazen enough that he told Kobe Bryant, "Do not pass me the ball," in an NBA game. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I wasn't done with that bit. I had to get that out there. Hey, I didn't show the Darko.
Don't you dare.
Was that what you were expecting me to do? Were you expecting me to show the Darko?
Yes.
I won't do that
do
to you. I'm not. No, we got many more of these coming up. Believe me, there's time to show the Darko. There's time. I'm gonna put these on top of the Ancient Muse that I have sitting there. Because prized possessions should go with other prized possessions. I hold them about as in the same amount of esteem as that PSA 9 2003 Bowman Chrome LeBron. I haven't heard
an Ancient Muse Pokemon card in almost 15 years.
Well, maybe we'll save that for another episode. But you're at a deficit of time. I was supposed to let you go at noon. We were at 12:25.
This was fun. I'm pretty sure my phone has been blowing up too. So,
but this was therapeutic, I'm just happy to be back doing this, man. And I'd like to do them.
Miss it.
I'd like to do them more frequently. I'm kind of hoping we can come back in 2 weeks and do another one. I'd love if we could do it next weekend, but let's see what the future holds with both of us.
Okay. We're good.
Yep. All right. Well, in any event, trolling aside, this has been I don't know the episode count. I'll have to go back and check. This is a spitball session. But this
But
has
it's
been exactly. This has been Ethan and Nick's Trash Boat podcast. Um,
maybe in a future podcast we introduce the Cajun barbecue.
I mean, there's got to be a power ranking for those wings, and I'm having that by the
Let's
way
do it.
tonight.
Let's do it.
Yes.
You know
By
what?
the
Maybe
way,
that's what I'm gonna eat for dinner tonight too.
no, do it, because we're gonna order that too, and you best believe Cajun barbecue is gonna be the number one option. But
It's the blue blood.
it is the Duke, the Alabama, the Ohio State, the North Carolina of wing flavors. It is the number one, no doubt about it. New York Yankees, the Patriots of wing flavors. But on that note, it's been real. Ethan and Nick's Trash Boat Podcasts. I am Finkelstein on Twitter, Nick's Tape 15 on Twitter. Please remember to like and subscribe this video if you want more content. I mean, we'll bring it to you anyway, but it's super encouraging to see engagement. And I'm happy that we have the video format now for this. I'm happy that we actually have that extra element because it helps to be able to put faces to this.
Yes, definitely. All right,
guys, wherever you are out there, have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll hopefully see you in a few weeks' time. Take care, guys.
Mask on.
Yes, masks on, buds.